Welcome everyone to KidSpirit's 2024 Global Summit. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Lewis Dabney Hockman, KidSpirit's founder and executive director, and we are so happy that each of you could be with us today for a deep dive into the topic of coming home to ourselves. For a lot of us, this time is full of extra activity, end of semester assignments, maybe for some of you, tests, even holiday preparation, and in a larger sense, a time when the issues around us can make the idea of coming home much less to ourselves, sometimes seem far away. And for that very reason, your presence here with us today, voting with your feet, is a way of showing confidence in this very topic of exploring ways to ground ourselves, cultivate creativity, resilience, and the life skills that can help us to come home. I wanted to take a moment to call your attention to the gorgeous artwork that we're using as a background image today. This piece was created by Jasmine Shu, a KidSpirit artist from Australia. And this fanciful creature seems to be sitting contentedly on the moon in a vast open sky with the creativity and limitless possibilities springing from her head. So thank you, Jasmine, for evoking this image for us, this sprite, as the backdrop of our global conversation today. This event is a very special opportunity in a number of ways, and we look forward to it all year. The entire KidSpirit team has been working tirelessly to bring this topic of coming home into all of our homes. Thank you so much, Katie, Jesse, and Taylor. This is the one day where all of our youth editors and contributors around the world can have an in-depth conversation with each other, and it's also an incredible opportunity for our multi-generational community at large to hear and be part of a panel conversation between several amazing thought leaders in their respective fields alongside KidSpirit youth editors from around the world. So let's take a moment to say hi in the chat. And if you could share where you're tuning in from today, that would be fantastic. So go ahead and say hello, good afternoon, good evening, and where you're tuning in from. I can tell you that we're super excited to have KidSpirit editors and contributors coming from New York, Pakistan, China, Ukraine, India, Ghana, California and Texas, Bangladesh, Jordan, Lebanon, Liberia, South Africa, and Paraguay at least. And I think it's 11 time zones. So that's a KidSpirit record. And I'm very happy to see if there is anyone I've forgotten and any place that I've forgotten, please make sure you make note of it for us. It's very exciting. From Sophia from Brooklyn, welcome. Hi, Karen, good morning. So we're also delighted to have special guests who are here to watch and learn from all of our panelists, regardless of their age, and hear from our community of participants through their questions for the panel. So welcome, and thank you for joining us, members of our KidSpirit's Board of Directors, editorial board liaisons, KidSpirit alumni, parents of current donors, and other friends. And now that we've said hello in the chat, hi Omar, hi Manor, let's also take a moment to greet each other face to face before we really jump in here. It's very special to see each other. So if you could, let's go back to gallery view for just a moment. And if you haven't done so yet, if you could turn on your camera and have a look around. Just have a look around at all these amazing faces. It's great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. It's really nice to get a sense of our community and wonderful to be here together. And they always say that the shortest distance between two people is a smile. So here we are. And you know, we really do have a sense of being in a room together. It's a big room, but it's cozy. And now I am so thrilled to hand it over to Aria Chen, joining us from Beijing, China, where it is quite late at night. Welcome, Aria. She will be introducing our moderator for today's panel. Take it away, Aria.
Hi, thank you so much, and I'll be introducing Lewis. Lewis Dabney is a leader in the field of conflict resolution with over 25 years' experience, specializing in civil rights mediation, restorative justice, ethnic and religious conflict, program management, system design, and training. He is a leading expert in the mediation of disputes pertaining to the Americans with Disabilities Act and has lectured on various aspects of conflict resolution practice at universities in North and South America, South and Southeast Asia, and Europe. Lewis is executive director of the KeyBridge Foundation, a nonprofit alternative dispute resolution practice that provides a range of conflict resolution, program management, training, and technical assistance services to clients in government, business, education, nonprofits, and unions. He has trained and mentored hundreds of mediators across the United States and served in several leadership positions in the Association for Conflict Resolution. He was winner of the Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution 2020 Distinguished Alumnus Award. Welcome, Lewis.
Thanks so much, Aria. Great to be kicking off KidSpirit's Global Summit together. And our featured artist today, art is a central part of KidSpirit's work, and our featured artist today is Om Kakad from India. And Om's beautiful artwork speaks to the theme, coming home to ourselves, and we'll be using the art in our breakout room activities. And here's his piece, Elephant Love. And here's his piece, Reaching Hand. And now we're going to be starting to introduce our panel for today. And first up is Arya. And Arya Chen is a high school senior from Beijing, China. She's passionate about learning foreign languages and the conservation of ancient languages, including Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, as well as languages of Chinese ethnic minorities. She enjoys discovering the differences and underlying connections between cultures through translating, though it always takes her hours to decipher a single paragraph. She's also been learning dancing since the age of 4. These experiences inspired many of her writings on the relationship between art and meaning. Despite these, she is also guilty of binge watching TV shows in her free time. And as you all know, like the central production of KidSpirit is our quarterly magazine, and so a lot of everyone on the call today has contributed to the magazine over time. And Arya's pieces include Dance and Meaning, which was a feature article for the Finding Meaning issue in winter 2023. And she also did the Transcendence of Art, the big question article for the Music and Art issue in winter 2024. And I'm also delighted to welcome Shahryar Khan. And Shahryar is 17 and a cricket enthusiast, a student of Karachi Grammar School in Karachi, Pakistan, an aspiring writer, and an avid reader advocating for peace and research, peace and prosperity around the world. He plans to pursue economics and finance in the future and aims to research in depth regarding the unique behaviors of individuals that compel them to make certain economic decisions. As of now, he's working on a research paper regarding the feasibility of mangrove forest plantation in his native country and the benefits it may bring to his country's economic condition. He plans to work with KidSpirit for many more years to come and collaborate on numerous projects. And Shahryar wrote A Mirror into the Past, an awesome moment article for the Now and Then issue, fall 2023, and Discovering Youth-Led Solutions to Global Issues, a collaborative feature article for the Change in Crisis issue in spring 2024. And I'd like to pass it off now to Ananya.
Thank you, Lewis. I would like to start off by welcoming Kaitlin Curtice. Kaitlin Curtice is an award-winning author, poet, storyteller, and public speaker. As an enrolled citizen of the Potawatomi Nation, Kaitlin writes on the intersections of spirituality and identity and how that shifts throughout our lives. She also speaks on these topics to diverse audiences who are interested in truth-telling and healing. Kaitlin leads workshops and retreats, as well as lectures and keynote presentations, ranging from panels at the Aspen Climate Conference to speaking at the Chautauqua Institution and at universities and private retreat centers. In 2023, Kaitlin released 2 books. First, Living Resistance, an indigenous vision for seeking wholeness every day, which examines the journey of resisting the status quo of hate by caring for ourselves, one another, and Mother Earth. And second, her first children's book called Winter's Gifts, an indigenous celebration of nature, which is the premium book in a series of 4 books on the 4 seasons coming out with Convergent Random House Books. Her second book in the series, called Summer's Magic, was released in 2024. Besides her books, Kaitlin has written online for Sojourners, Religion News Service, On Being, Self Magazine, Oprah Daily, and more. Her work has been featured on CBS and in USA Today. She also writes at the Liminality Journal. Kaitlin lives in Philadelphia with her family. So Kaitlin, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so honored to introduce Ananya. Ananya Verma is a 16-year-old from Springdale School, New Delhi, India. She is a passionate writer who expresses emotions through different literary genres. She also composes songs and is an advocate for social justice. She loves to travel and connect with people from diverse cultures. In her free time, she also enjoys listening to music and going on walks with her golden retriever. And I will pass it off to Finn.
Thank you so much. I would like to welcome and introduce John Hendrix. John Hendrix is a New York Times bestselling author and illustrator. His books include The Faithful Spy, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and The Plot to Kill Hitler, called the best book of 2018 by NPR, and Drawing is Magic, Discovering Yourself in a Sketchbook, and many others. His award-winning illustrations have also appeared on book jackets, newspapers, magazines all over the world. John's newest graphic novel, The Mythmakers, The Remarkable Fellowship of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, that the literary and spiritual friendship between Lewis and Tolkien, will be out in 2024. The Society of Illustrators named John Distinguished Educator in the Arts for 2024. John is the Kenneth E. Hudson Professor of Art and the founding chair of the MFA in Illustration and Cultural Visual Program at the Sam Fox School of Design and Visual Arts at Washington University in St. Louis. In 2021, 3x3 magazine named John the Educator of the Year in Illustration. John's work has appeared in numerous publications, including Newsweek's, Sports Illustrated, Entertainment Weekly, Rolling Stone, The New Yorker, Esquire, The New York Times, Time Magazine, National Geographic, among many others. John lives in St. Louis with his wife Andrea, son Jack, daughter Annie, dog Pepper, and cats Kit Kat and Luna.
Thank you, Finn. Yeah, everybody put their pet's name in the chat. I forgot that was in my bio. Okay, this is Finn. I'm very glad to introduce Finn Kelly. He's 16 years old and has been involved in KidSpirit for 2 years. And he's contributed a book review and an article about the future of AI for publication in KidSpirit Online. He's currently enrolled at Millennium Brooklyn High School and has a passion for learning Greek. And in his free time, he loves to run around Brooklyn with his friends. So welcome, Finn. Oh, and also someone just said they have a dog named Pepper. So thank you.
Yeah, I saw that too. Well, it's so great to be together today, and John and Kaitlin to have the day, the next several hours to work together with, we'll be breaking out into groups later, but for now we get to have a little conversation about the incredible work that you all do, and for you to have a chance to chat about it with Arya and Shahirya and Ananya and Finn. And but if you could just share with us a little bit about your work to kick it off, Kaitlin, if you could give us some insight into your work.
Thank you. Bonjour, everyone. Kaitlin Curtice and Dejnakas, Bodawabmi and Dow. Hello, my name is Kaitlin Curtice. I am a citizen of the Potawatomi Nation from Turtle Island, or what we call North America. And I am so honored to be here with you. I, like was mentioned earlier, I'm a poet, storyteller. And so I love poetry and I love storytelling, and I kind of combine that in my life. And so I want to read you a poem from my book, Living Resistance, just to kind of get us started. I think of poetry as sort of a way to take a deep breath. And so I always begin my work when I do public speaking to just start with a poem, because it allows us to just settle into where we are for a moment, to just take a few deep breaths. So I invite you to just Settle in and breathe as I read this poem to you. What is a poem? It is the quietest, softest part of you, held to an invisible microphone, held up to the light, held up beyond the hustle and bustle of the day and the groaning aches of the night. A poem is the anger that releases itself in your time of greatest need, when you are ready to fracture before you believe again, ready to break open and receive yourself to yourself. A poem is the whisper that tells everything, the secret that cannot be denied. You are exactly as you've always been. Beloved word, spoken self, relieved ache, tender child. The poem is you. It always was. So poetry and words have always been a really, really important part of my life. And I would say words and being able to write in a journal, being able to have that way of processing in the world has actually been a thing that has kept me safe and has brought me home to myself over and over and over again in my life. And it still does to this day. And I'm really grateful that I get to be a writer for my job, because it's something I love and I need so very much in my own world. And, as a writer, a way that I think of my work is I think of it as good medicine. We talk about this a lot in Native American or Indigenous culture. What does it mean to live in a good way? To give good medicine. Like, we want to help others. We want to take care of ourselves and help each other. And that's a huge part of my work. And I would say that also a lot of my writing sort of centers on three things. It centers on care for ourselves. So how do we love ourselves? How do we come home to ourselves, right? Care for each other. How are we loving one another well as people? And then care for Mother Earth, who in our language, we call her Sugamakwe. And how do we take care of the earth around us? And all of these things are deeply connected. And so for me, being Potawatomi is a really important part of my work, because, being Indigenous, being Native means that I'm always asking how we can better connect with ourselves, each other, through this idea of kinship. Kinship just means sort of like we belong to one another and we belong to the earth. And how are we practicing kinship? We have these teachings. They're called the 7 grandfather teachings. So things like love and truth and honesty and humility and respect and bravery and wisdom. These are ideas that I think all of us can connect to in different ways, no matter who we are, no matter where we live. Is sort of a universal way of connecting to ourselves and each other. And it's about living in that good way, learning how to come home to our truest selves, how to care for each other. And that's something I love doing with adults. I love doing it with younger people. We all need to be reminded of ways that we can come home to ourselves and to continue to do that, whether it's through our art, whether it's through writing, through music, through other forms of creativity. There are so many ways we get to express ourselves in the world. And when we do that, that actually is a gift to other people and a gift to the earth. And so I want to just encourage you today. I'm here to hold space with all of you, to share a little bit about me, but also just to get to know all of you and hear the ways that you're already doing this. I'm so excited to learn from you and be in conversation. So Chimigwech, that means thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here with you. And I'll pass it off to John.
Thanks so much, Kaitlin. That's such a beautiful invocation of connection and the power of the word, which inspires so much of what all these youth that are with us today and participate throughout the year and over the last 15 years. So thank you for that beautiful invocation. And John, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, good to see you all. So I've got a few images I'm going to show when I talk about my work. But first, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you draw? Like, do you currently draw right now? Like, maybe you do. I hope you do. But I bet if I asked you when you were like 5 years old, you would have said, oh, yeah, no, I totally draw, right? Like, there's something that happens when we are young where everyone makes images. Everyone sees thinking and processing the world as drawing. And then something about that changes. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my work. I have that many of you would probably love. It's called Drawing is Magic, Discovering Yourself in a Sketchbook, and how even if you don't think of yourself as an artist. Now, this is the important thing. If you think, I can't draw, that's really actually not the point of drawing. Drawing is really visualizing thinking more than it is about making a beautiful artifact, making a perfect artifact. Usually you get to this age around 10, 12, 14, where suddenly you look at other people's drawings and you think my drawings aren't as good. And you forget the sort of expressive power of drawing. And the thing about a sketchbook that's so awesome is that it's portable. You carry it around, and it's a way where you can keep this repository of raw and fun and exciting new ideas in the form of drawing. And that's how we actually get further in touch with who we are as makers, as thinkers, as people. Here's a picture of me from just a couple weeks ago. No, this was when I was a kid. You can see there's a blue ribbon on there. If you can't see, there's also an amazing drawing of Garfield back there. Do you guys know Garfield? I think Garfield's an international hero. I drew Garfield all the time. And then when I got to high school, I started drawing my own comics and putting them on the copy machine and forcing my friends to buy it from me. And, it's funny. These drawings actually, I went to graduate school. I learned how to paint. I became a real artist. But the stuff I make now looks just like the stuff I made in high school, which I think is kind of hilarious. Now, you may know me from some of my picture books out there. I've done a lot of picture books. And then most recently, as was mentioned, my 2 graphic novels that are nonfiction visual stories, one about Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the other about C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien and their creative fellowship. But the thing I really want to underscore today, in just the few minutes I have left, is that you should try to make drawing part of your life, even if you don't think you're ever going to be a professional artist. And honestly, I think that term ends up bogging people down. Like, everyone in the world is creative. We are all makers. We were made to be makers. And so don't worry about, am I a professional, a capital A artist or not? Just think about it like a playground, right? When you go to a playground, Put yourself back a few years when you go to a playground. Would you try to actually get anything done or accomplished or any work created? No. What's the point of a monkey bars, right? It's just to enjoy the experience. So if you think of drawing in the same way, something that is just an enjoyable experience, it can be really fun. And as you get into art school, maybe those of you who do a lot of drawing in high school, it's hard to take a big canvas out into the world. They have a whole name for it, plein air painting, where you take a big canvas and all your paints out and paint the world, right? And that's one way to do art. Actually, I think a better way to make art part of your daily life is to have a sketchbook where, if you happen to see 2 squirrels playing a game of cards, you can draw that really quickly, and that may only be there for a moment. Actually, I've never seen that, but I hope to. But the point is that the sketchbook is very portable. And even those little tiny ones that can just go in your coat pocket, those are really, really great. And the wonderful thing about a sketchbook is, and this sneaks into your mind, actually, you don't realize that you start being afraid to let other people see you try things that you're not good at. And I remember that feeling like, well, I don't want people to see this until I'm like a super expert at this task. Because it seems like you look around and like, oh, this friend, he's great at soccer. She's really good at math. And like, oh, I guess I need to be really good at drawing before I start doing that. And I think actually a sketchbook can encourage us to just make stuff and enjoy it. And in fact, I'm not going to go through all these, but there's a couple I just want to point out. These are my 10 commandments of drawing for many, many years of teaching young people about art. And then the one I really want you to take away is number 3, normalize struggle. Make sure that you know that learning something new requires struggling with it and figuring it out. And that's true with drawing. That's true with any new task. And so you're not going to be, from the jump, someone who is really good at it. And so sitting with the idea of like, wow, if I'm learning, it's probably going to feel uncomfortable. And man, that is true in drawing as much as it's true for any other activity. Playing the piano, there's going to be a messy beginning phase. And if I can leave you with one quote, I love this quote from Howard Thurman, who was a very famous pastor, theologian. He inspired MLK in the civil rights movement. He said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and then go do it. Because that's what the world needs, is people who have come alive. So when you think about what you are doing in your life, I would say my advice as someone who teaches in college at a very competitive Ivy League school, don't think so much about vocation when you're young. Your vocation will find you. Think about the things that make you come alive. This is the season where you get to really prioritize that. And the rest is actually going to take care of itself. So we'll do, in my group, we'll do some drawing games. I'm gonna force you to make some drawings later. So yeah, I'm really glad to be here, and thanks for listening.
John, that's so cool. And the coming alive thing, it feels so alive as you share that with us and transmit it. And I was hanging out with my 8-year-old daughter the last couple of days and checking out some of your art and the incredible art that's been produced in the KidSpirit community over the years. And she spent like most of yesterday just like trying, experimenting, drawing all kinds of stuff. So the inspiration is palpable. And now we get to just like mix it up a little bit. I'd love to pass it over to Ananya and Shaharyar to see if they have any questions for Kaitlin to kick it off.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lewis. So from Kaitlin's introduction and her work, I'm sure we all agree that she is truly insightful in the domains of spirituality and healing. I personally am very curious about how we as teenagers and youth can create a bond with our environment. So, Kaitlin, my question is, what would be your advice to individuals who wish to find their inner strength and build a personal connection with themselves?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for this question. And it has sort of multiple layers to it. So I'll sort of answer in two different ways. I think the first thing that I would say is we are connected to our environment. So no matter where we live, if we live in a more urban area, if we live in the countryside, wherever we are, we're connected to the land and the waters and the places and spaces around us. And that's really important to remember on a deeper level, that when we're coming home to ourselves, that's part of our environment, and especially when it connects us to Mother Earth, because a lot of us become disconnected from Mother Earth. And I actually think this is something John sort of spoke to this about. When we're little, we love to draw, but then as we get older, we're kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can do that anymore. That happens to us in a lot of ways as we get older. We can be curious and that idea of being childlike, sort of embracing the world around us. And as we get older, we're kind of told, like, stop doing that. You need to be an adult now. And actually keeping that wonder and that curiosity in our lives is really important. It actually grounds us and it centers us, and it becomes a part of our art or our work in the world. And so the other thing I would just say is, as you're connecting with your environment, as you're making space for that, and you're connecting back with yourself, what you're going to find is this sort of outflowing of what just naturally comes from the gift of that time that you're spending. I write some of my favorite poetry I've written when I'm just outside being quiet and alone with nature. It just kind of flows out of me. Or when I take the time to just get sort of quiet and centered, that's always where my words show up. And that's always been important. And so if you do draw, or if you paint, or if you love music, however you are inspired in those spaces, just let it show up, let it flow back out of you. I think of our relationship with our environment, with the earth, with one another, as this reciprocal, but it's like a circle flowing out of us back and forth to each other. And so it's this constant exchange of like I said, good medicine. So we're constantly giving and receiving within the world around us and with one another. And so that's such a beautiful thing. So when we are feeding our own, what I would say, our souls, but ourselves, that just flows back out again. And it's a really beautiful way of honoring the environment, honoring the earth, honoring all of these gifts, honoring ourselves and each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Kaitlin. It's so inspiring to have you here. My question for you is, how do you see storytelling influencing the next generation's approach to environmental justice and care for the earth?
I love this question. Thank you so much. So in our culture, we have this idea, in Potawatomi, our Potawatomi culture, we have this idea of the 7 generations. And so that means that everything that we're doing today is going to affect those 7 generations after us. And the way that I've written about it also is this idea of liminal space. And so liminality is like, it's like this idea of moving between things, right? So when you think of like 2 things, there's like always that gray area in between. That's liminal space. That's liminality. And liminal space is actually really powerful. And I often think of the timeline of our life as sort of this this long sort of disc, where on one end we have like our ancestors, all those who came before us. No matter who we are, we all have ancestors, right? And then at the other end of that long disc is those future generations, those people who will come after us and the world they will inherit. And then we exist in that liminal space in the middle, right? And so when it comes to care for the earth and environmental justice, the decisions we're making now are going to affect those who are on that. They actually, I think it sends an energy back to our ancestors, and I think it affects future generations. And so this is a beautiful thing because it reminds us that we are connected. That idea I said of kinship earlier, like we're always connected to each other. We're always connected to future generations. And I don't want that to be felt as like too much pressure. I want it to be felt as like a gift that we get to be connected to those who come after us. And I think that sometimes when we talk about environmental justice or care for Sigma for Mother Earth, we sort of forget that it's about a relationship to the earth. And I think in what I've learned through being Potawatomi is that we get to approach it differently when we think of it. If we think of coming home to ourselves as also coming home to this relationship to the earth, that creates something different in the way that we show up in the work that we do. It creates something different in our art, in our writing, in our studies. It creates something different in the world. And I think that, I sort of call it the ripples that come out of us. So when we are doing this work, when we're creating, when we're connected to the earth, when we're thinking about this relationship, the way that we approach it, that is going to ripple out to future generations. And I hope that they will inherit something better, and that the stories we tell, the power of story is so, so, so important. I just finished writing my brand new book, which is coming out next year, and it's on the power of storytelling. It's on how we use stories to harm each other or to heal each other. And that is incredibly powerful, right? That's a huge thing, that we shape the world through the stories we tell. So can we shape our relationship to the earth through the stories we tell? Can we shape that relationship to future generations through the stories that we're telling, through the stories that we're sharing with each other? And to remember how powerful this work is, and that we get to do it together. We're not alone, and that there's always this connection. Right now, today, in this space, we are making connections for future generations, and that should make us really excited. It makes me so excited when I think of it that way. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. Thank you for the response.
Yeah, really, really cool. I love the highlighting of liminality. I'm an old anthropologist, and so like I feel that the power of creative potentiality and the sort of how that can kind of bring together dichotomies and things like that, where, in some of the native cultures, sort of like disease can be like an over concentration of life and things like that. So and the power of story and connection kind of being in the juice of liminality. So super cool. Finnegan and Arya, do you all have any questions for John?
Yes.
Yes.
Would like to ask John, was there one person in your life who directly inspired your path into creative works, or was the trajectory set by other means?
Oh yeah, what a great question. No one inspired me. I'm a genius, and I'm an island of great ideas. No, that is never true. If you ever hear anyone say that, that's just categorically not how human beings operate. Our work always gets better in community. That's one of the lessons I learned about studying Tolkien and Lewis and the Inklings. They would not have completed their work without each other. And so, yes, there's lots of people in my life that I can look to where there was a kind of hinge point where I was thinking about a lot of different things in my life. And one was a high school art teacher, Mr. Nagel, who really encouraged me, gave me a space I could go to in high school and just make stuff. One was a college professor where I didn't actually know illustration as a category really existed. I thought to make art, you had to like draw comics. I don't know what I thought, but I kind of thought that picture books were made by people as just kind of a hobby. I didn't realize it was a full career. And I met an amazing faculty member, Barry Fitzgerald, at the University of Kansas, and he was incredibly helpful in just like saying, you know what, I think this activity is what you were meant to do. And you have those moments in your life. Like, I'm a parent, I want to be that person for my kids, but the reality is that your kids go out in the world and meet other great adults, and they're going to have these moments in your life. So like, as you all leave the comforts of home to go to high school and ultimately college, there will be those people in your life that you'll look back and feel very thankful for that they blessed you.
Yeah. So cool, John. Arya, you have a question for John?
I also have a question. So you draw on like about very diverse topics, but are there any specific stories or theme that you feel drawn to revisiting again and again? And why are they important to you and your work?
Yeah, I mean, I started out as just a person who loved making drawings. And I'm like an accidental writer because I didn't think of myself as a good writer in high school. I dreaded the 5 paragraph essay. I thought that was like basically torture. And so if you had told the 12-year-old version of me that I am a quote author, I think that would be insane. But yes, I came to writing as a way to get to the imagery. And so the stuff that I often write about is the stuff I want to draw. And so I kind of reverse engineer the process. And so for me, a theme in my work often is a fellowship, believe it or not. Like what happens when people come together? What happens when their faith or their belief system, things that they believe strongly in, rub up against the cultural friction of our world? Like what do they what do they choose to act on, and what do they choose to put aside, right? In my books about John Brown and Dietrich Bonhoeffer, all these stories are about people having these sort of hinge moments in their life and the choices they make. So yeah, you'll find that when you're getting older, you start to have all these questions about what is my voice, what is my style, what are the things I'm interested in, and as if you have to choose them. And believe it or not, the thing I have noticed teaching young people for so many years is that all that stuff is actually inside of them already. And it's more about discovering it than it is choosing it. And so you just have to work long enough to kind of like dig up enough dirt around the stuff that you like to find those little gems in the stuff you're looking through. So yeah, I think you just have to be persistent, read a ton. I mean, you should be reading as much as you can. That's always a way to help find your voice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so cool, John. That sort of like that these potentialities sort of reveal themselves if you keep sort of lending your attention to where they might be hiding. It's really
yeah. It's more an act of being patient and persevering and sort of a long suffering with you and your work than it is like I need to make all the right choices, and if I don't, everything's over. Yeah,
stick-to-itiveness.
That's right.
Whoa. So great. Well, we're going to have kind of like a more sort of free flow exchange here now that we've had an opportunity to dig in with John and Kaitlin a little bit. But I do want to give a heads up that in, 15, 20 minutes, we're going to open it up to the larger group. So if there are any adults or youth out there that want to throw some questions into the mix, we're going to spend some time with that in a little bit. So you can throw questions into the chat and then we'll pick some people out to highlight to join in. We can either read the questions or you can come online yourself and join the panel here and ask a couple questions. So but yeah, part of the joy and juice of KidSpirit is just the youth working together, because that's what we're doing normally throughout the year. Is there are all these editorial panels around the world working collaboratively with artists and authors from around the world to review and produce beautiful, beautiful work. So I'd love to get a sense from Shahryar and Ananya and Finnegan and Arya, like how are you responding to what John, the beautiful sharings that John and Kaitlin are putting out there for us today? What do you guys make of this stuff? And let's just mix it up. John and Kaitlin, to the extent you want to hop in on this too, let's do it. Any thoughts? All right,
Should I
go.
Okay, thank you. Well, listening to the work of John and Kaitlin, I believe that both their perspectives are so inspiring because, as John says, we should let our creativity flow through drawings, illustrations, which I believe is very powerful. And it's like drawing in poetry, as Kaitlin says, they resonate with us. And it's like we all are connected to each other just because through these means of writing and illustrations. So I believe that their work and their journey is really very inspiring. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I think that's important to underscore is that there is something about the world we live in today, especially with things like Instagram, where we post images about ourselves that seem to be fully completed and fully accomplished, right? No one is posting things that look bad or that are process works, or no one is sharing a poem on Twitter that is in its first draft, right? So there is this sense, I think, in young people that everyone else in the world has figured everything out. And so like I need to get with the program. And the thing I really want to underscore is that like the process of making and learning is so messy. And if you see any of my books, it looks like, wow, I came up with an incredible idea and then I just made it and it was awesome, right, from the beginning. And that is never the way. It's just never the way it happens. It is extremely normal for you to have a very bad first version of something and to continually make it better. But you got to love that process of making for it to really be something you want to continue. So yes, thank you.
Shahryar, Arya, Finnegan, any of you have thoughts you want to share or kind of elicit from each other?
I have
Yeah.
one. So basically, as John said, I do think it's imperative and very important that all of us focus on our passions. Nowadays, a lot of the youth, or even in my school, what people are doing is focusing on what they're good at, not what their passion is. So in this world, a lot of people don't really realize that people in universities or abroad or even the work field look not for your aptitude for a certain subject or aptitude for a certain subject or certain interest of yours, but rather your passion, what you're good at, what you can enhance and improve on in the future. So I completely agree with John there.
Yeah,
And do
I
you guys
think
have any questions for each other?
I have a question for Shahryar.
Cool.
Yeah, sure.
So, I saw that you've been writing for KidSpirit about now and then. Like you wrote about the vibrant memories of your childhood and the current decay of your old primary school, So, what do you think physical transformation, how does it affect your relationship with past memories?
Physical transformations of places tied to our past memories, such as childhood, often evoke complex emotions. These changes can create a sense of loss as they disrupt the connection between tangible spaces and the intangible nostalgia that they hold. Seeing an old school decay, as I showed in my essay, might amplify feelings of impermanence, reminding us how time alters both places and the people who once occupied them. At the same time, these transformations can offer a new perspective. They challenge us to recognize that memories are not static, they evolve just as we do. While the physical decay might initially feel disheartening, it can also deepen the appreciation for the moments once lived there, highlighting how these experiences shaped us despite the environment's current state. Ultimately, the impact of physical transformation depends on how we reconcile the reality of change with the enduring essence of our memories. Just like school buildings, our personalities and bodies undergo physical transformation. It is, however, important to keep in mind here where our morals lie and what we stand for as individuals, regardless of the change in circumstances. So, thank you for asking me that question.
That is a very beautiful answer. I think it's very inspiring. It really all depends on how we process the transformation, both like physically and within ourselves. So yeah, that's a beautiful answer. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. I too have a question for Arya.
Okay.
So, Arya, what have you learned about the connection between language and culture from studying ancient and minority languages?
Oh, that's a good question. I think actually one of the biggest reasons that I'm really passionate about learning these languages is that it really shows me how sometimes our cultures can have like underlying connections with each other, even though that we don't see it or realize it today. So by learning like ancient languages, for example, Greek, I can see how it is actually similar to ancient Chinese in certain ways that they make vocabularies. And um, I have like one example. Um, the ancient Greek word for dolphin, for example, has the root word for pig in it. And it's actually the same for Chinese. When you're writing that character, the right part means pig. And so it's just very interesting. I haven't like really dug into like the reasons behind it, but it's just really interesting to see these kind of connections between the two ancient cultures and how they think alike when they're making vocabularies. And it's just fascinating. And for um, like languages of Chinese ethnic minorities, you can like see how different cultures think differently and how their lifestyle is different in ancient times. And I think it's very important to preserve that. Um, it really is part of our identity to see how we think as a to to think as a community and where our traditions are. Um, for example, in one of these minority languages, I've learned they have the same word for three things: for cloth, for clothes that we wear, and also blankets. And that is because in ancient times, the one piece of cloth has all three functions. And it just shows how life was back then. And I think that's very interesting. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to see if I could ask Finn a question. I don't know. Are you game, Finn?
Give me 1 sec. I just want to. I was just really inspired by yes, and I was just really inspired by what Arya was saying, because I think it goes to what Kaitlin was saying with the kinship piece of like the intersection between peoples, and like one of the sort of moments in history that like has always really captivated me is kind of like along the Silk Road when Alexander the Great had passed through there, and then you have this incredible sort of confluence of cultures like showing up a couple thousand years ago, where like ancient Greek philosophy is sort of encountering earlier iterations of Buddhism in the Himalayas, and like this incredible art where like the first anthropomorphic representations of the Buddha start showing up out of Hercules statues and things like that. So I was just like really getting my juices flowing, that sense of kinship and like the sort of substructure of connections between peoples around the world over time, and how cultures that can seem like really distant aren't necessarily. So really appreciate that offer. And over to you, John.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I just I wondered if Finn could talk a little bit about what he thinks about AI, given that he's written about it a little bit. Like what should young people in the world be thinking about? Should they be terrified? Should they think of it as a tool or a trend, or I don't know, a tragedy? What do you think?
Thank you for asking me. I think with AI, no matter your stance on the efficacy of AI, it's definite and it's a fact that it's here to stay. And it's already been incorporated into most of what we do and all the intricacies of our life. I mean, in the Zoom call, I don't know if it's still being transcribed, but there's an option here for us to transcribe the Zoom call via AI. And yeah, that just goes to show how it's practically everywhere. And since it's everywhere, and as I've seen in my research, it seems like it's not going to spontaneously leave us. It's not going to shut down. And it's best for society to just accept it to a certain degree, rather than shun it in fear. It's kind of similar to how prohibition was in the United States. If I'm not wrong, it was during the 20s when we banned the drinking and sale of alcohol, and that just led to all of this crime, horrible crime. And the only way to really use AI well is to moderate it, is to have a helping hand from humans on it. So to sum up, we shouldn't fear it, and we should all try and get together and see how we can moderate it. So thank you for asking me. I appreciate it. And if I could, I would like to ask Ananya a question as well. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
of course. Go ahead. Yeah.
Right. Good. So you've written a piece about the past indirect and direct influence on the present and future called The Tremors of Earth, the Unshaken Spirit of Humanity. So building off of this idea, do you think there will ever be a time where an event in the past can become so distant that it could be ignored by future generations?
Wow, that's a good question. Thank you. I believe that even if there is a memory from 6 months or 6 years ago, there is something about it which influences our lives and our decisions in one way or another. Regardless of whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, that element has some impact on us, and sometimes in ways that we never expected to. I agree that once in a while, maybe ignoring a past memory can be healing and even relieving some stress that you might have. But I think that it's better to remember moments from the past and cherish them so that we can learn from them and grow from them. The past, I think it never really truly fades away because distant memories, they leave these soft ripples in our lives and they shape our identities, our personalities as a whole. So as you mentioned in the piece that I had written, I had explained about how my family was stuck in a tragedy in one of the states of India, and the community there was so friendly. They opened all their doors, provided assistance. And looking back at those memories, my parents still are so fondly cherishing the love and the affection that those strangers they had given. And it encourages them to be more proactive and be like a helping hand. So I definitely believe that memories have some sort of influence on you and they always impact you in a good way. So thank you for the question. And if you don't mind, I actually have a question for you. Okay, should I go? Okay. In your introduction, you had mentioned that you love running around Brooklyn with your friends. I think that's a lovely activity. So I would like to tell you that in many Indian movies, the Brooklyn Bridge is frequently appearing in various iconic scenes. Since you like exploring the district, what is your favorite destination in Brooklyn and why?
Well, first off, that's exciting to hear that Brooklyn's included in so many movies. I didn't know that. It's very fun. And to answer your question, it's going to sound like a non-answer, but I think all of Brooklyn is pretty great. That's kind of the joy of living in a metropolis like New York, is that you can go anywhere and you can find something really special, even if it's an area that's usually not really picked up by social media or by most people. There's usually a little gem in there that you can go with friends or just on your own and enjoy yourself. So thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for this panel, I was picking up on, last year we had folks in Burundi and different places, and this year it's sort of like the metropolis panel. We've got Beijing, New York, the whole gamut. So it's really cool. So before we open it up to some other questions, any other thoughts you have? Kaitlin, do you have any questions for any of the youth panelists, or any other thoughts coming up?
Yeah, I wanted to ask this one to Shahryar because I think it'll speak to a lot of where, youth are today. I know I've had this conversation with my kids, and what I loved about hearing about you and all the different passions that you have and how they overlap. I think that's really amazing because a lot of times we get kind of told in certain ways that we need to pick one thing and be that. Like, do you like sports, or are you more into creativity? Do you like this thing, or are you this thing? And we're always talking. I have 2 kids, and we're always talking to them about how you can be many things, that you can be, you should be, you are. We all are complex people, and we hold all these different passions that we sometimes are told they don't go together, but they do, because it's us, it's who we are. So have you ever struggled with that, with just accepting all these different things that are your passions? Have you ever felt like you needed to be just one thing, or have you just been able to kind of integrate all of it? And what would you say to others who might be struggling with that?
Well, first of all, that's a lovely question. I think I've learned to embrace the idea that we don't have to fit into one box or limit ourselves to a single passion. Each one of my interests, like teaching economics, sustainability, and beyond, connects in surprising ways and enriches my perspective. Instead of seeing variety as a distraction, I personally view it as a strength that allows me to approach life with curiosity and creativity. Exploring these passions has helped me to grow and feel more fulfilled, as I've realized that being complex and dynamic is something to celebrate, not shy away from. It is imperative, I believe, to dive into whatever we feel our passions or interests lie in order for us to grow and understand ourselves better. Like for me, I play sports such as cricket, while also being good at economics or researching topics about economics that succinctly encapsulate the economic condition of my country right now. So I believe it's imperative that we balance both of them and dive into whatever our passions may be. So thank you for asking me that question.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
I lived in South Asia like 30 years ago, and I really picked up I didn't like get captured by cricket, but boy, when like in Sri Lanka and India and stuff like that, just like the countries would like grind to a halt when there was a good match going. So it was pretty exciting. Yeah, and earlier on the AI issue, Zoom prompted me. It said, "Have you switched languages to Spanish? Would you like us to transcribe Spanish?" So it's a work in progress. Um, yeah. Any other thoughts before we open it up for some questions?
Can I ask Ananya one quick question as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just thinking about, you sharing about your poetry and how it, your creativity, you want it to speak into social justice topics. And as a poet, sometimes I feel like people kind of think of poetry as something that is maybe weak or not really important when it comes to the heavy, hard issues in the world. And it is important. And I think that words and poetry and stories actually give people strength when they're in pain, or they give people hope when the world feels heavy. And so, do you have any thoughts on how, poetry or storytelling or that kind of creativity, how it can help us sort of process, just the hard things that happen in the world?
Well, thank you for the question. It was really beautiful. Um, I believe that poetry is a very powerful message which resonates with each and every one of us. It's like a connection from one soul to another. Poetry, I believe that it ties us all together like we are small lucky charms of a bracelet. Despite us being from different cultural backgrounds, we still understand and support each other through challenges, times of difficulty, obstacles. I think poetry brings a sense of calm amongst all the chaos and conflict which is happening in our world today in so many different countries. A touching poem, I think it just really goes a long way. It's like somebody puts a hand on your shoulder and just says, "Don't worry, it'll all work out in the end, you'll be fine." Like you said, poetry gives strength and optimism through dark days. And I believe that no matter what happens 20 years or 30 years down the line, I think it will always be a symbol of hope and that new beginnings can be change makers and that no matter what happens, we still will be connected to each other. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to start pivoting to questions from the general audience. So please start popping your questions into the chat so we can get broader participation here. But as we do that, Arya, I was just wanting to see, like, with your experience with like music and dance, how's that informing you sort of coming back to yourself and your journey?
I think it's like poems, like the other panelists just talked about. It's also a very important way for us to not only express ourselves, but also to connect and even to form communities in ways that maybe like conversations cannot do. I think because I wrote about kind of this experience for me, like when I was little and I just started to learn how to dance. I was trying my best to kind of replicate what I was shown in videos by my teachers, trying to like do my best to look exactly like them. And then I realized that that was not probably the best way of expressing meaning with dance to simply replicate, but it's more important for us to express what we actually feel so that we would actually move the audience. So before our emotions was able to reach the audience, we must ourselves first express how we feel. And that's the probably the best way for us to discover what it means, what dance means to us, to sort of embrace, because I do traditional Chinese dance. So it's also like a kind of way for me to embrace my heritage, like my culture. And by learning dances of other cultures, other ethnicities, I kind of also, it's very similar to languages. You kind of also learn where they come from, their traditions, how they think. And I think it's a great way for communities to communicate in a non-verbal way, and probably it creates meaning that are even longer lasting than conversations. Yeah, it really transcends what we can express in words.
So true, Arya. Really beautiful, beautiful sharing. And we do have our first question. And also, I should remind folks, just you can use the react button. There's a little caret there, and you can like raise your hand to hop in as well. And but we have a question from Nandana. Um, and John is like lifting off rockets of enthusiasm, as is his want. So yeah, Nananda, would you like to Nandana? Would you like to come be spotlighted, or would you like us to read your question? I can read the question just because there isn't an affirmative question desire to like come on video. So I'll just read Nandana's question. What part of the writing, drawing, creative process is the most challenging for you? If and when you face that kind of writer's block or drawer's block, how do you overcome it? I'll pitch this to our adult folks.
Yeah. Oh man, such a good question. It's so normal to just be uninspired and to not know how to solve a problem. So the thing that you can't do is just like say, I'm going to chain myself to this desk for the next 8 hours until something happens. Usually, the thing I suggest is to do brainstorming in like 30-minute increments. Set a little timer. Even like, I have an egg timer in my studio that's just like I set it to 30 minutes. Usually, after 30 minutes, we're kind of hitting like repetitive ideas. And after that, do something else, do a different activity, and ideally go to sleep before you come back to revisit those ideas. I'm convinced that our brain solves problems for us while we sleep. And so if you can sleep between brainstorming sessions, you will have better ideas. But yeah, I mean, to me, the ultimate motivator is a deadline. And I'm just like you guys. Like, I need an assignment that is due on a day so that I can finish it at the time. It's very normal to just be like, if you have a rolling thing or a project that has no real shape or form or destination, it's very hard to be motivated about that. But yeah, Kaitlin, I wonder what you would say to this.
Yeah, I think some similar ideas that when I'm trying to write something and I just can't, I will go do something else. Or if I still want to write, I'll just write about something else. And sometimes I'll like sit and write about what I'm presently experiencing and not being able to write. So sometimes I'll just write about writer's block. Like I'll write about, like what am I sensing? Okay, I'm hearing cars. And I'll sort of write like a poem about not being able to write. And sometimes that really helps, because you can just acknowledge it. And I'm the same way. I need a deadline and I work toward a deadline. But also some days, if you don't want to write or do the drawing, then just take a break and go do something else, because inspiration shows up. And it surprises us sometimes. It will surprise you where you will decide to just go do something else for a while. Sometimes I'm just watching a movie, like something completely, and some moment from the movie like brings some writing to me. And then I want to write about what I'm learning from that moment. So actually, remember that like the whole world around us, the people we encounter, the creatures we encounter, like are all these moments that might show up to us in ways we weren't expecting, and then make us, have the space to write or draw or create something we didn't even know was possible. And that's really exciting. So maybe when you're stuck, think, well, what's waiting for me somewhere else? And go find that thing and let it surprise you.
So cool. And we have a bunch more questions coming in now, and we'd like to, if folks are willing to sort of come off mute and join the panel to ask your question. We have a question from Amun Mumtaz for John. If we could bring Amun on to ask her question directly. We can also read questions, but maybe we can have Amun join us for a moment.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amin Mumtaz from Pakistan. So my question was basically for John. Ever since I joined the meeting, you seem like a person, like the humor you bring in, that you seem like a very confident person. And I don't think you would ever have a problem to show your personality through words directly. So my question is there something that you feel only your art can show about your personality that your words never really could? Is there something in particular that only your drawings or your sketches show about you that you think words wouldn't be able to show?
Yeah. Oh man, such a good question. I think it really comes down to what is art supposed to do, right? Like the cool thing about art, if you had to ask me, what does art do? It allows us to see through the eyes of another person. That's what art is, right? And it's a way actually to connect two human beings. I fully believe that art is not art until it is shared with another person, right? So like if you're making paintings on a desert island just for you. Again, I don't know how you got the supplies there. Let's just say you had endless art supplies. I think it's maybe more craft, but it's really not art until another person is involved. So I do think that art does something that is kind of it's kind of a gestalt. That's an art word for like the whole is more than the sum of the parts. And art is a way to sort of speak a special language to another person that kind of can be said in no other way. So I think that's what's so fun about making art is that you, the artist, can be involved in discovering something when you make something. And I think we've all had those moments if you draw, like every now and then, and frankly, it doesn't happen to me all that often, but where the art does the magic on me, like it works on me. And I am kind of chasing that feeling, honestly, every time I sit down to make a drawing. But yeah, that's a wonderful and confidence in your work, that is something that it takes a long time to really feel like you know what you're doing. And so just you have to realize that everyone when they begin just feels like they're just throwing darts at the wall when they're making art. And that's part of the process of art making.
So cool. What a great question, Amun. Thank you so much. And thanks for the answer, John. And we have Nicole Aquino Vasquez has a question for John and Ananya. Nicole, could you ask your question?
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
So my question for them two, it was about what made you decide you wanted to participate in KidSpirit?
John, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of, again, I write a lot about the power of community. And again, it is a weird thing, especially with artists, is there is a kind of cultural liturgy that artists are loners. They're selfish. They're kind of like navel gazers. Maybe they're even like a drag on society. Again, these are all false ideas that get, handed down for whatever reason to young people. And artists' ideas always get better in community, and resisting the notion that if you share an idea with someone that they're going to steal it or make it worse or pollute it because your pure authentic idea is the best. Again, I think that's not really the way the best stuff is made in the world. We need others. And so the idea of a summit of kids from around the world talking about things, man, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, that's my answer.
Well, John, I completely agree with you. And Nicole, thanks for the question. I wanted to participate in KidSpirit because I just love learning about diverse cultures, backgrounds, and how it reflects in each of our identities, our personality traits. I also loved the community that KidSpirit has built because all the writings that we publish every issue, they all bring something new to this journey. And it is so inspiring and motivating to learn about different people, their life, and how we all are just, it's like we're all connected human beings living in different spots of the country and of the world, actually. So I wanted to participate in KidSpirit because of this exact reason. There was such a beautiful and a wonderful community, and we could speak our mind, speak our opinions, and just be honest. So thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Conrad Tittle has a question. Conrad, can you come off mute and ask your question?
Yeah, for sure. Is my microphone working? Can you hear me?
It is. Perfect.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, so this question is sort of more posed to sort of any adult panelist that would like to take it. But, I was kind of wondering, like, you've all had such rich careers. Was there a point where maybe you've had a regret about a decision you've made down that career path or completely, you wanted to change career paths? I don't know. It's kind of a heavy question, but if so, how did you overcome that moment?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I had to just come to acknowledge who I am. So I think that for me, in college, I studied social work. And so I thought, and psychology. So, I was like, I want to be a psychologist or a social worker. But I was also taking all these literature classes on the side and I just couldn't stop. And so, it was kind of like my heart was trying to tell me something, but I wasn't really listening. And and I could never quite like get centered on what I wanted to do with social work. And so there were always these sort of doubts in the back of my mind, or this kind of fog around it. Like I couldn't quite see myself in that career. And so finally a few years ago, it kind of hit me like, now I'm a writer, but like I love people and I love trying to understand how healing works for us, and like how our minds work and how we try to sort of connect everything. And I realized that, the all the different classes I took in college, whether they were psychology, social work, poetry classes, I was bringing them all together in my being. And now I know that all of the stuff that I learned in all these classes came together for me, and I use all of it now. And so it was nice to finally, understand that clarity, but it took a little while. And so I think there is, sometimes we just can't quite see it. And then all of a sudden we see it. And so that was the way it happened for me. John?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has regrets and maybe paths they sort of wish they had taken. I think that's very normal. You're never going to plan out your life perfectly to make the 10-step program to a successful and happy life. There's always going to be a bit of a mess there.
Mhm.
But one I think of is that early on in my career, I got a commission from a magazine that I just did not agree with ethically. I did not like what they did, but it was a really big name and it was a really huge commission. And I ended up convincing myself I should take it because, well, one, I needed the money. And it was a big name. It really was. But I just disagreed with them. The actual content of the piece was just a fiction story. It had nothing to do with the bent of the magazine. But I ended up taking it. And then when the magazine came out, I just remember feeling terrible. I was just like, I don't want my name in this magazine. And it was one of those times where it was a lesson that I really learned, that like my sense of integrity or what I want my life and my work to be about is not worth this particular check, right? And that's a lesson I had to learn the hard way. And I think you'll all come to these crossroads in your career and life where you maybe have to make a hard choice that usually involves self-sacrifice. And that form of making that choice can be really hard. But that's one that comes to mind right away. Good question.
Thank you so much. Those are very insightful answers. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and we've got a couple more questions, and then we're going to wrap up this section of the program. But Isla, can you hop on and ask your question? Then we'll take a couple more and wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm Isla. I'm from Pakistan, and my question was for John. So I saw how you were recommending that we stay away from striving for perfection and let our creativity foster. However, I take A-level art, and I feel like a lot of the times the criteria can be restrictive. So what advice would you give to me, or like how do I navigate situations like that? In your case, how do you navigate situations where you feel like you create a piece of artwork, but it isn't meeting your expectations?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So first of all, that's every single piece of art that I've ever made. Okay. So when we think of an idea, that idea in our mind is as perfect as it will ever be, right? Okay. Now, as the moment you try to make that real, it gets worse. This is why people hate making art. The good drawings resist being made. Like I have this chart that I often show of like, as soon as you come up to that idea in your mind, and then you try to make it, you fall immediately off this cliff into this terrible pit where you think everything about that idea is bad, right? And the temptation is to think, oh, the idea was bad and I need to start over on a new idea. But that's not what it is. It's that every single idea, once we try to make it real, goes through this struggle of incarnating itself. And all incarnation involves pain, basically. So to get to the point where you make a piece of art, you have to just like have this long suffering and perseverance in your work, whether it's writing or painting or drawing or whatever. And the thing you finally make at the end, this is the important part, it will never hit the level that that idea was in your mind. That gap will never be closed. And so there is always this kind of burden as an artist of living with the idea you had and then the thing you made. But the good news is no one else can see the thing that was in your mind. All they see is the thing that you made. And so this is why people will be like, oh my gosh, I love your drawing. And then you'll be like, no, that's terrible. It's terrible. Don't tell me that. Right. And it's because we're all these like head cases where we're still stuck with the great idea we had in our mind. So yes, I think resisting perfectionism, man, this is so important when you make stuff. Like, do not make the perfect the enemy of the good. When you are making drawings, a good drawing is really, really a good use of your time. It does not need to be perfect. Great question.
Well, and so many
Great,
other
thank
great.
you.
Sorry, Isla. And thank you for the great question. And there's so many other great questions, and we're trying to pack them in, but we're kind of also needing to stay on schedule because we have this whole breakout session in the afternoon where all the youth here will get in-depth time with Kaitlin and John. And so we're getting to the point where basically we should wrap up this portion of the panel discussion. And I just really want to thank all of our adult contributors. This is or sort of observers and friends of KidSpirit. It's time for we'll be getting to the point where you'll be jumping off and we'll be taking a little break, and then all the youth should totally stay on because now here comes the fun KidSpirit part where you all get to work more closely with John and Kaitlin and the KidSpirit crew. So I really want to thank all the adult folks who are going to be hopping off for joining us today, and thanking Kaitlin and John so much for for being a part of our community. Like, welcome aboard. You get to experience a little bit of what a wonderful group this is. And again, there's so many other folks out there with really cool questions all over the world who've been queued up to participate. So thanks for your patience and us not being able to get to you. But again, lots of room for participation in the coming hours, with Kaitlin and John. So stay tuned. And I do want to pass it over. I think it's to Shahryar is going to take us into a sort of sharing around the awards for KidSpirit for this year, because there's just an incredible, and all the youth really choose like the really standout pieces from over the years. So I just want to pass this over to Shahryar.
Thanks, Lewis. Since we are gathered together, we want to take this opportunity to showcase the winners of the 2024 KidSpirit Awards. Please enjoy this short video highlighting some of the award winners and their celebrations around the world.
For the last 17 years, KidSpirit's global community has been a hub of creativity and connection for teens around the world. As we gather with KidSpirit contributors from near and far, we are excited to take the opportunity to celebrate the youth winners of the 2024 KidSpirit Awards.
Each year, KidSpirit's network of youth editors around the world vote for the writing, poetry, and artwork they feel most represents our mission to explore big questions in an open spirit. From over 200 pieces published in the previous 12 months, they select those that are the most thoughtful and inspiring to win a KidSpirit Award.
To support meaningful festivities, KidSpirit offered award winners the opportunity to apply for microgrants to fund their special celebration. Here's a glimpse into this year's gatherings. An award winner from Pakistan celebrated his award at a special dinner out with family, complete with traditional dishes and a KidSpirit cake.
Winners hailing from Paraguay and Australia also held celebrations at local restaurants to celebrate their achievements. One winner from the UK even took her mom out to a celebratory dinner at her favorite pizza spot. Instead of hosting a gathering, a winner from Ukraine celebrated by getting new art supplies, using her grant to fund her future creative projects.
Several award winners celebrated with gatherings at home. Editors in Taiwan and Haiti had a pizza party with friends and family, and an editor in New York had a backyard picnic with homemade dessert. In Pakistan, one award winner hosted a fun and festive costume party.
Instead of hosting a party, a winner from India applied for a Helping Hands grant and used his funds to support a coding program at a local computer lab. Another award winner in Pakistan applied for a Helping Hands grant to feed stray dogs in her neighborhood.
Meanwhile, back in Paraguay, a winner celebrated by hosting a tea party with friends, family members, and her liaison, a KidSpirit alum.
Finally, 2 winners from Ukraine celebrated their achievements by exploring the countryside and enjoying the beauty of nature with their loved ones.
A big thank you to those of you who shared your celebrations with our community. We loved getting a glimpse into your special projects and meaningful gatherings. Congratulations to all 30 2024 KidSpirit Award winners, and thank you to all of KidSpirit's contributors from around the world. Your creativity is the magic of KidSpirit.
Thanks so much, Shahryar. And, let's all share our congratulations for all of this year's award winners. Feel free to drop it in the chat. And again, thanks for attending this part of the program. Our adults are ready to step off. And all the youth, stay tuned because we'll be continuing in a sec. I'll pass it over to Elizabeth.
Thanks, Lewis. Thank you so much for your moderating this amazing conversation. What an incredible group of people. Kaitlin, John, Arya, Shahryar, Ananya, and Finn, thank you all so much. And congratulations to all 30 of the 2024 KidSpirit Award winners and to all of our adult guests. We're really glad you could be here for this. It was very, very rich and beautiful, and it's going to keep going. So adults, have a wonderful day. Thank you for coming. And kids, take a couple minutes to, if you want, to turn off your camera, but don't leave because you can continue the conversation in just a couple minutes when we pop you in a breakout room. So thanks, everybody. See you soon.